Hello, and welcome to Todd Klindt's SharePoint podcast number 254, recorded live on July 20th, 2015 from Cincinnati, Ohio. I am your host, the adorable Shane Young, and I am being backed up by the ever-present executive producer, Lori Gowan. So, before we jump in there, right, I'm very excited to jump in and do this tonight. I am replacing Mr. Klindt, who is ironically in the chat room listening to me talk about this. I can only imagine the pain and suffering that he is going to persevere over the course of this show. So with that in mind, let's jump in. Step number 1, rack space plug. Well, that seems like a pretty good one for me. And tonight we'll do the www.rackspace.com/Microsoft. There, we just revamped the page to coincide with our Azure launch last week. You can get links off to our new fanatical support for Microsoft Azure. Yeah, my newest baby. Our private cloud offerings, SharePoint, Exchange, SQL, Windows Server, all those fun things. So check it out. Because, Rackspace, they pay Todd, they pay me, and they provide the bandwidth for us to have this awesome show every week. So, and speaking of that, I think they are the reason you don't have to put up with Todd this week, right? He has been called to the castle. I believe he's being fired. Fingers are crossed. So hopefully he will be terminated and we can move on and I'll do the show from now on. All right? Fair enough. All right. And Todd is whining about the lag in the chat room, in case you're wondering. So production notes from last week. He published it a little late. Once again, one of the reasons he's been called to corporate HR. And he still needs to work on the auto white balance. Apparently, the screen flashes from time to time, and that's because Todd doesn't know how to operate a camera. I don't know what to tell you. He's got all this fancy lighting. He's got all the equipment. He's got the backdrop. Not me. See, I know how to operate my camera. So the fact that I'm sitting here at my desk, I got all my toys. I got a bunch of junk mail over there. Little thing my kid made me. I got the unicorn cat, right? I'm sure you guys talked about this a few weeks ago, the whole unicorn cat thing. Microsoft's taken it so far that now I get them in the mail. It's even got a Cortana logo on the chest. Very interesting. Yeah, so good stuff. Production notes through. Let's jump in then with some random news headlines for the past week because I don't know. It's always the way I like to start the show. It's just really what happens is on at some point on Monday afternoons, I realize that I have to do the show. And I'm like, oh, man, oh, man, oh, man. Lori usually answers me like, hey, you ready to go? And I'm like, oh, yeah, I'm doing the show tonight. So I send off an email to some of my other tech nerd friends, and they generally help with some ideas of what to talk about here. Good buddy, old Jerry LeCanu, who was on the show last week. And my other buddy that I have known for a million years, Stephen Wilson, were some of the contributors for tonight's news. And with that, we'll start with our friends at Ashley Madison, your favorite website for cheating on your spouse and my favorite website for cheating on my spouse, right? And it looks like our friends at Ashley Madison had a massive little data breach. And the people that did it are now threatening to share all of that information with the world. So, apparently one of the services of Ashley Madison, I've never been, but one of the services is when you're done using the site, you can pay them $19 to permanently delete your record. What do we all know about the internet? We know that everything on the internet is forever. So it turns out for your $19, they delete your record, but they keep your name, address, phone number, and credit card number on file to show that they deleted your record. So they didn't actually fully delete your record. So that's where the hackers apparently found that list, and that's the one that they're offering to share with the world to expose all the evil cheaters. So just remember, anything you do on the internet, it's forever. I don't know. Hopefully you guys all know this, and this is not a shock to you. But, so if Ashley Madison's not your thing, right, because you're not married, so you don't need to cheat, then, of course, maybe you're using good old-fashioned Tinder. And so with Tinder, one of the things they announced, and I can't believe this is really a problem, but with Tinder, they're now doing, verified accounts or, real accounts type of thing. So the same way that Twitter does, right? They give you the little checkbox so it's really Bill Gates that's tweeting you, or it's really, whatever your favorite celebrity is here. Pretend like I just referenced them because I'm cool. Apparently now Twitter will do that, or Tinder will now do that. So when you're swiping left and you see that picture of Taylor Swift, if you see the little blue check mark, you'll know that's actually Taylor Swift who wants to know whether or not you think she's hot. Duh, I think you do. So I don't know. It's an interesting feature to add. I can't believe they have that many celebrities that are out there slumming it, swiping left or swiping right to meet other people. I thought you just had groupies kind of follow you around, that's what your entourage was for, but who knows? Tinder has went all mainstream, or I guess not even mainstream. It's went all cool people, right? So I guess if you date enough, you can, get yourself a Tinder verified account as well. So there you go. The next little piece on that though, so for me, Ashley Madison doesn't work because, well, I'm afraid of my wife and she'd murder me. Tinder doesn't work because of said wife from the beginning. So the only woman that I have in my life these days is my dearly beloved Cortana. And you have probably already found out the chat room does not approve of me digging Taylor Swift. Who knew? But you probably already found out that Windows 10, Cortana is going to be part of Windows 10. And so it should be launched natively. And finally give the rest of the world exposure what all of us Windows Phone fans have really ranted and raved about the platform for a long time. So that's old news. But this article that we've posted here is it's out of time, and it talks about all the efforts that they have to go to internationalize Cortana, right? Apparently one size fits all doesn't work. And so it talks about, I think it's only launching with 7 different languages. But even like the levels of humor that Cortana introduces, and even the visuals have to be kind of adjusted depending on what country it's being launched in. It turns out our British friends, they like, dry, self-deprecating humor. And I believe I think it was the Chinese, their version of Cortana, instead of being the round circles, actually going to have like these 2 eyes that kind of like follow you around. It was either Chinese or Japanese. One of those 2 versions has like a whole different visual acumen as well. So kind of cool. As a guy who launches products here for Rackspace, it's always interesting that you have to think about how your messages will be received in different parts of the world. And, for our stuff, private clouds, fanatical support in Azure, that type of thing, you don't really have to change the product, just really the messaging. But it sounds like when you're launching a digital personal assistant, you actually got to figure out, what they want there. Also, it was a great little quip. They talked about they wanted to hire one of the writers off of David Letterman's show, right? Those guys are all unemployed now, so needed a job. But it turns out they didn't feel like that many jokes. They felt like that would kind of, take Cortana down a notch in people's eyes. So they actually ended up not going with that guy. So he's still unemployed. If any of your companies are hiring, I know Todd's kind of got the lock on McDonald's and Wendy's applications, but if you guys see one for Burger King, White Castles, I had White Castles that week. They were tasty. Please pass those along to that David Letterman writer. He couldn't write for Cortana. He was too funny. They also talked about the age ranges. It is a good article. I recommend you read that one. And so from that, we jump over to our friend Amazon. How many of you, went out and were really excited for the Amazon's, what they call it, Prime Day, right? Their own version of Black Friday. And how many of you were sorely disappointed after that happened? Yep. Look at that. All your hands just popping up. Everyone in the studio audience's hands popped up. Of course, the studio audience is over here, so I should have looked that way when I told you they all raised their hands. But see the little cow. Yay. That's a donkey, not a cow. But yeah, so Prime Day was a huge failure from most people's standpoint. Unless you needed like a 50-gallon drum of lube. Turns out that was one of the things for sale. It didn't really hit the note that a lot of people were doing. But the article here that I posted did call it an interesting tidbit, right? Network World kind of went with the angle was, even if it was a sales failure, which it turns out they released the sales numbers and they actually exceeded Black Friday, so it wasn't a sales failure. But even if it had been a sales failure, getting all that data, right? All of their Prime shoppers coming, logging in, and browsing, it really is a data game for Amazon, right? They're trying to capture all of your habits. What are you looking for? And so think about it, whatever you were currently shopping for, right? I wanted a new putter. I want a new Scotty Cameron Newport 2 putter. You don't care, but golf. But I went and looked for that putter to make sure it wasn't on sale, right? So now they've captured that about me. So they know, man, if we ever really hard up for some revenue, right, we can probably cut that putter 10%, send Shane an email, and he'll probably hop in and buy it. So that's kind of a fun way for them to be able to look at the world and get a lot of, a lot of data about what their Prime shoppers want without spending any money, right? If you think about it, I want to do some market research for one of my projects, and it's going to cost me 50 or 60 grand to do market research. They just ran a sale, wrote down everything people look for, and they're going to kind of go from there. And this is a twist, a first time ever. My wife, Nicola, has joined the show. She's probably here. She's probably glad that she missed the really goofy intro. She's probably really mad that I'm talking about her now. But hi, honey. Glad you could join. Jill shows up. I always talk to her when she joins, so now I'm talking to you because you've joined. And Mr. Klindt would like to point out that he feels like, Amazon already knew that I like to shop for putters on their website. It's true, but, I still think it was a lot of analytics. So it was a big burst of data all at once. They probably were actually not looking at normalized things like what is Shane looking for, but more of, hey, next time we run Prime Day, because they've already announced it'll be an annual deal. If we ran more sales on vats of Crisco instead of the 50-gallon drum of lube, then they would have, a better shopping experience. I think that's what they were going after there. All right. So anyway, that is Amazon. One of the things that I wish Amazon had actually had for sale out there was the world VentureBeat has found out for us that Windows 10 for the first time will be available on USB sticks, right? Forever we've had to buy Windows 10 via digital download or DVD and then make our own USB sticks. That's what we all did, right? As soon as we got it, we extracted it out. We went and downloaded the little doohickey off the internet to make the USB stick or make the Windows 10 image into a USB stick so we could stick it on a device and install it. It's the fastest way to do the install for the common man. Well, finally, for the first time ever, they have announced that they're going to sell those. They will not be available right at launch. Apparently, it's a moving date, but you can pre-order them on Amazon now. So if you're looking to make someone's holiday season by buying them a Windows 10 on a USB stick, here's your opportunity. Go pre-order now before they sell out. I'm guessing if you guys are looking for a Christmas present from Mr. Klindt, I think he's the type of guy that would appreciate getting Windows 10 on a USB stick in a stocking for Christmas. All right. So I think that runs us through the news. Hopefully I didn't mess up. I do the whole, pardon the interruption thing and say check for errors, but I have no one to check other than those guys, and they don't really do much. So we'll say that I didn't have any errors. So then I think the last thing I wanted to kind of dive into here a little bit, and this is the one, if you're in the chat room earlier, Lori was saying she couldn't tell by my notes really where I was going with any of this. So one of the things I wanted to talk about was the Azure product launch. And we know that Todd and Jerry talked about it last week because I was partying it up at Worldwide Partner Conference, kind of crazy, in Orlando, which the humidity there when we landed, I think, was 100%. And somehow it got over 100% while we were in there. I don't know how I did it, but it was pretty ferocious. Oh, my wife's leaving. I'm very sad. It was the Ashley Madison comment, wasn't it? Darn it. But anyway, so Azure, the Azure product launch, one of the topics that I've been harping on a lot here that I thought everyone kind of had a firm grasp on, but it turns out I talked about it at WPC on the session I did there, and people didn't really get it, so I want to kind of run by you guys and make sure that you guys are thinking about it the right way. As we look at, the road to the cloud, right? We all know, I think we all know, hopefully you've all accepted this by now, but last time I asked this in a room, not everyone accepted this either, but everyone's going to go to the cloud. Every company that's out there, one way, shape, form, or fashion, they're all going to end up in the cloud. And as a bunch of Microsoft people, we have a really hard time with this because anytime someone talks to you about public cloud, right, they're like, oh yeah, it's elastic and you can do DevOps and you can do all this magical stuff and it doesn't matter. Just write your application to take advantage of all these resources and it'll all be so awesome. But we're like, wait a minute, I'm a Microsoft guy. I don't want elasticity. I don't want to do things, right? We're the people that have 26 million Windows 2003 servers running, right? We want to buy a server, install an operating system on it, put our application on it, and let it run for the next 20 years. That's our Windows guys mantra. Now, I think we'll evolve from that, but right now that's how we think about the world. So when we think about that and we look at moving to Azure, we need to kind of think about it from a different fashion. And so this is where I've been trying to talk to people about what is referred to as pets versus cattle. All right. And so when you start considering using public cloud, you really need to look at it from, are you trying to move your pet out there or are you trying to move cattle? And so what is a pet, right? A pet is a virtual machine that you want to create, that you want to give a name, right? You want to create server number ABC, right? Or maybe you name them after Star Wars character, right? You can create a server named Yoda. And then you want to take Yoda and you want to keep him running for the next umpteen years, doing his workload day in, day out. If Yoda gets sick, what do? You fix it, right? You put antivirus on it, you troubleshoot it, you open the event logs, you back it up on a nightly basis. You really care about that VM on a personal basis, right? That's why it's a pet. So I always use Pugsley, my Puggle is my pet example. So that's one model. And for us in the Microsoft world, that's what we have. We have pets. If you think about a SharePoint farm, right? When you built the farm, you had 2 web front ends, you had 2 application servers and 2 database servers. And those 6 machines, like how I kind of did that, those 6 machines are probably going to run forever. Or at least, for the next 20 years, 10 years. How many of you got Windows 2 or SharePoint 2003 servers still out there? Exactly. So when you look at those, these are pets. But when you think about the cloud, everyone always wants to sell you on the advantage of cattle. And in the cattle model, you would create infinite number of SharePoint servers, the web tier, the app tier, the database tier, and then you just spin them up and down programmatically day in, day out. That's not how SharePoint works. That's not how Azure, or that's not how Exchange works. That's not how Dynamics works. That's not how QuickBooks works, right? None of those applications work in that model. So as you're thinking about your move to Azure and you're thinking about doing pets, right? I was going somewhere with this is the whole premise of the offering that we built, the whole fanatical support for Microsoft Azure. We've enabled you to have pets in the cloud because we do monitoring, backups, antivirus. We have a support guy who answers the phone 24/7, 365 days a year. And that's really the difference in the model, right? If you go to a lot of the other solutions, you just don't have a way to move your pets out there because they're like, AWS is a great example of this. If they expect a certain rate of VM failures, they'll tell you that, right? You just have your application, you got QuickBooks out there running on one VM, that VM's going to die one day. We're not going to give you notice. We're not going to get it back. Just be like, yeah, that VM's gone. And in a cattle model, that's no problem because you'd have a DevOps resource that would just spin up another VM and everything would just keep chugging along. But that's not where we're at, right? As Windows folks, we build cloud first. We haven't started building cloud first applications. We're taking persistent workloads and moving them to the cloud. We're also using it for test dev, things like that we don't really care about. If your test dev VM blows up, you're probably annoyed because it's right before you do a demo. But other than that, the world doesn't end. But if you move your pet VMs out there, your workloads that you actually care about, you got to find a way to monitor those, back those up, and take care and feeding of those. So that's one of the biggest things I want you to think about. As you guys are looking at Azure and how does it relate to your careers, how should you be thinking about solving that problem? You got to sit down, whoever it is that's tasked you with solving this problem, and then first explain to them pets versus cattle. We all want out of our own data centers. One of our executives, was at a CIO summit. He said, and every one of the CIOs said there, if you guys could just make it so they didn't publish CFO magazine anymore, that'd be great. Because CFO magazine says, move all your stuff to the cloud tomorrow. It's more cost effective, blah, 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 blah. So CFO comes in, yells at the CIO, why aren't you in the cloud yet? And the CIO goes, because it's hard. And the CFO goes, doesn't care, blah, 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 move it. But so when you're engaged in those conversations, make sure that you're kind of starting it with that premise of, we got our pets and we got our cattle. If we're going to go build something new, if we're going to build the next version of Facebook, that's great. That's cattle. We can do that. and the cloud is great and it scales and elastic for that. We can do it by ourselves and just going to learn new skills. But if we want to move our pets out there, there's a different set of considerations you have to make for that. And I think one of the key considerations for that move, and this is one of the things we were talking about in the chat room earlier as well with Mark, and that is this idea that Azure AD, all right, folks, I have been pounding this drum for a long time. I've beat certain people that are in this chat room over the head with it on a daily basis. Azure AD is all of our futures, right? I don't care if you're a SharePoint dude, a Windows dude, I don't care who you are. Azure AD is going to be the future. And I see it in a couple of different flavors. One of the flavors we're talking about is, the fact that we know that with SharePoint 2010, 2013, and oh gosh, I'm going to get started on SharePoint 2016. But SharePoint, right, all of the cool new features, where are they? They're in Office 365. If you're going to roll out on-prem and you want to get one of these new great search solution-driven features, what do you have to do? You have to federate with Office 365 using some form of either dir sync or, if you're smart, Azure AD. Once you get out there and start doing the Azure AD, it just opens the doors for you to do more and more and more cool things. You've got to embrace it. Todd actually pointed out to me the other day, right? Windows 10 will be the first operating system that can natively join an Azure AD. So I would really be embracing that. I also think it's interesting that the Azure AD stuff, this is a theory I haven't shared with anyone yet, so you guys can make fun of me for it. But we all know that we've all been running AD forever, right? Windows 2000. But so with Windows 2000, right, we first built our first AD, and then we've just been kind of upgrading it, right, as we've kind of moved up the ladder. No, we occasionally change the force functional level. Some people are still way back on like Windows 2000, 2003 force functional levels. Actually, I don't think we had 2000 functional level. Whatever it was, it's been a long time. But we know that with AD and a lot of companies, there's a lot of technical debt. I think if any of you are looking to create your own future, you want to start a company, create a company that specializes in taking an existing Active Directory and rebuilding it from scratch in Azure AD for a company. I think there's $1 million idea that I just shared with all of you. But it's a really compelling story. I think that AD in-house has finally gotten so bad that as these people start to look at moving to Azure AD, they're like, man, I really want to do that, but I don't think it's going to work because I got all these broken things. Now's the time to nuke and pave our internal AD and just have it born in the cloud and start there. I think that's what's going to happen. So I don't know. I just think that's a good one for you guys to consider. All right. I feel like I rambled. I warned Lori that I was going to ramble on the whole pets versus cattle and get off on Azure AD. I knew this was going to happen. So anyway, that's my 2 cents. The last one I want to kind of hit on, and apparently in the chat room they're now talking about Todd having Kirk on and it not going very well for Todd because everyone likes him better than Todd. So the last one I want to point out, this was for Jack who left us, so I kind of feel bad giving Jack info here. But the last book I read was, it's called The Hard Thing About Hard Things. It's Building a Business When There Are No Easy Answers by Ben Horowitz. And with that book, it's been a fun one. So it's about a dude that, was a CEO, kind of figured out how to work his way from nothing up into a really big company and all the challenges and all the dumb crap that he had to work through and, the company failing and him having to talk his way out of the company failing and then selling. And there's a lot of chaos. And I think it's a good book. It's probably most applicable in 2 scenarios. Either if you are the entrepreneurial mind, you just like to, see how other people think who are running the ship. But the other one is if you work for a public company, no matter what your role is in that public company, I think this book gives you a good perspective of what your CEO is doing. And so like we all have been there, right? The CEO comes out with some decision, we're changing this or we're doing that. And you're like, man, that guy's an idiot. What's he thinking? Right? Because you're smarter than him. We're always smarter than him. But with that, you're not going to when you read this book, you're going to kind of get this idea that, man, there's a lot more that went into that decision. And maybe he's, sometimes it's the CEO's kind of dangling the keys, right? Hey, everybody look at this shiny thing. I'm going to make you all mad. You stare at this and be mad at this. Why go over here and make this major change that you're not paying attention to? So it has a lot of those insights. Ben's got some decent humor in it as well. So I don't know. I kind of liked the book. It took me a little longer to read than I would have expected. It wasn't a page turner as much as I like, but good book. I'd recommend that one. And the other really interesting thing about it that I found bizarre and really no connection to the text whatsoever is every chapter starts with a quote or of a lyric from a rap song. And there's some hardcore rap songs that he quotes in there, and it's like, that seems almost offensive. But I don't know. I thought that was kind of a neat way to do it, but then I realized that his quotes had almost nothing to do with the chapter, so it just seemed like he wanted to put some random rap lyrics in there. So I don't know. Maybe when you read it, you're smarter than me. You'll figure it out. But I'm looking for a new businessy type book. So if you got any recommendations, definitely tweet me at Shane's Cows or email me shane.young@rackspace.com, or just mock me in your book club and be like, Shane's not smart enough to read. I can't share this book with him. Whatever works for you. All right. So I think that's the news and all my fun stuff. So now I get into this part where it's usually shameless self-promotion, but really this is shameless promotion. It's all about Todd. So we're going to talk to you all Todd's upcoming traps, all of his upcoming trips. All right. So on Tuesday, August 11th at 8:30 Central, Todd will be at the Mississippi PowerShell user group. He even spelled Mississippi right in the notes, so good job. The topic is unknown. My bet is that Todd talks about something to do with SharePoint and AD. That's my guess. Also, or right after that, August 24th through 27th, Todd will be at SP TechCon. I believe that is the Boston show. So he'll be in sunny Boston without me. Very sad for him, but he'll get over it. Then in September 18th and 19th, Todd will be at SharePoint-a-Loozа. That's the weird thing they do down south in Arkansas, I believe. But with that one, he's also got topics unknown, and I'm going to bet again, if Todd's staying on cue, that he will be talking about SharePoint and Azure AD. Also very interesting for you to know is that the Kings Island fireworks are going off outside that window, and that popping noise that they're making is really weird to me. And finally, Todd will be, I didn't know about this one, October 26th through October 29th, he'll be at the Dev Intersections Conference. It doesn't say topic unknown, but since every one of his other topics says unknown, I'm guessing topic unknown as well. So that is Todd's upcoming travels. Chance to see him live when he's not too busy to do his show. Oh, and sorry, SharePoint-a-Looza is in Branson, Missouri. I got it wrong. Want to make sure I got it right. I want to be in trouble. All right, I think that's all I got, folks. So hey, I appreciate you for hanging out with me. As always, we know this is a much better show than when Mr. Klindt does it. So good on you for coming to the good show. If you need anything from me, you know where to find me. And if not, I'll see you next time that Todd's too lazy to pack up his equipment and do the show from the road. Thanks, and have a good night.